Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I hope you all had a good new year and a good Christmas and you're all fully recovered from the festive period. Been sitting right in my brains, really wanted to do a video, thought weather's rubbish, it's winter, it's cold, it's wet, it's miserable. And then I thought, why don't I talk about this, my bike, the MT10 2018 model. And I thought, I've had it 4.5 years and I've done 12,500 miles. So I thought now's probably a good time to kind of give my thoughts and views on the ownership of my bike and bits and pieces. So why don't I do a wee review? So this is going to be it. This is going to be my ad hoc review of my 2018 Yamaha MT10. So as I say, so I've had the bike, it's from new, done 12,500 miles. So start off, I think build quality, fit and finish. I think that's a good place to start. So overall, build quality, I think, is exceptional. Everything's been good, everything's solid after all this time. Nothing's hanging off it, nothing's going loose. So the build quality, I think, is really good. Paint's lasting up well. The fit and finish, I think the way everything's put together is tremendous. Nothing really rattles or wobbles or moves about. The finish on the bike, 12,500 miles, and I do ride it in kind of, not on purpose, bad weather, but if I'm out and it's wet, then it is what it is. And it's held up exceptionally well. Nothing's rusty, nothing's seized, nothing's corroded, none of the alloy parts are oxidising. So it's almost a 10 out of 10, and I'll explain that in a minute. So as I say, everything is wearing up extremely well. Like the frame still looks brand new, the foot pegs, the heel plates, absolutely nothing wrong with it. Everything's as you would expect in a modern bike. So in that respect, it's exceptionally good. The two bits which kind of niggle me, one still does and one was rectified, is the fittings, the coating, the anodised coating on the adjusters for the suspension. It's really thin. As soon as you touch that with a spanner or a screwdriver, it just flakes. So in that respect, that would just, if I was scoring this, it would probably make it like a 9.8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. Again, it's not really unsightly, it's not the end of the world, considering that everything else on the bike is wearing exceptionally well and still looks as good as the day I bought it. The adjuster for the springs, again, as soon as you go in with a C-spanner to make adjustments, it's very soft alloy, so you do mark it. Other than that, there's not really much to complain about it. My biggest gripe would be the finish on the wheels. So when I got the bike, after the kind of first 6 months ownership, it was winter, so I like to take my bike apart and give it a good clean. And that's where I noticed the paint on the wheels, super thin. So much so on the hub of the wheel, it was really dark, so you could see the darkness of the base black undercoat coming through the wheels. So when it was in for a service, speaking to the dealer about it, and all the bikes were exactly the same, and I was like, well, I'm really worried, because if it's that thin, I don't think it's going to stand the test of time. So anyway, I went in to get serviced and get a pair of tyres, and I know the dealer extremely well, and I know that they do take care in how they do things. But as soon as they tried to take the tyre off the bead, break the bead to remove the tyre, the paint just flaked. It didn't even scratch or score, it just flaked, and then if you ran your finger along it, it would literally just peel off like dry paint off a wall, and that wasn't great. So I was kind of right, it wasn't going to stand the test of time. But the wheels were replaced under warranty, The finish on the replacement wheels was much better, much thicker. So clearly not the first time Yamaha had replaced them under warranty, and in my opinion had rectified that. So now it's much better, but that was my two original gripes. Other than that, build quality, fit and finish, absolutely superb. Right, what next? What's it like to ride? Usability, reliability. Reliability has been spot on. It's never missed a beat, it's never wanted to not start, it's never been reluctant to start. It hasn't broke down, it's gave me no issues at all. After about 2 years, I did notice the battery was starting to just drop a little bit. So into the dealer, get the regulator rectifier checked out, all's fine. Popped a new battery in it, and that was fine. So it's the only bike I've really done a battery in, had the battery replaced in that period. But it's not a massive battery, I'll be honest. It's quite a small battery that's in the bike. So that may be something, it may be not. Maybe I just was unlucky enough to get a Duff battery. But it was outside the warranty, the battery wasn't expensive, so I popped a new battery in it, and it's been 2.5 years since, and it doesn't miss a beat. And I don't necessarily keep it on charge over winter, so, and it hasn't done it any harm whatsoever. Excuse me. Rideability, usability, it's bonkers. If you want it to be, you can put it in the first mode, or A mode, and it literally gives you everything on tap straight away. So it does become a little bit of a hooligan, and requires a wee bit of taming. But stick it into B mode, which is the mode I would ride it in, or number 2 mode on this model, and it still gives you that rush and that buzz when it goes, and the engine, that cross-play and crank, is a tremendous sound, and the torque it gives you is tremendous. So it's highly usable, it's great fun, it handles exceptionally well, considering this is 200 and something, maybe 210, 15 kilo bike. So it's not light, it's quite big, but it carries its weight well, and you can chuck it about. It's not R1, it's not a Fireblade, it's not going to carve corners like an absolute sports bike, but it's great fun. It is absolutely superb to ride. On that, couple of niggles. I think it might just be the nature of the engine. So my experience is, it kind of slow speed, it doesn't really like it. Sometimes you're pulling away from like traffic lights or junctions, and it just wants to go, so you get that instant bite, and sometimes it'll either pop a little wheelie or you can stall it. But once you get used to it, it's not too bad. The clutch lever, I've got small hands, the clutch lever is quite far away and there's not a lot of adjustment, but again, you can get around that with aftermarket adjustable levers. Comfort wise, you could pretty much ride it all day. It's good. I've got the comfort seat on it, so for me the standard seat it was comfortable, but it felt quite low, and it made the bars high. So you put the comfort seat on it, it gives you a little bit extra height, and I think that just puts the bars in a better position for riding, especially if you like to be on the twisties and you like to be in a wee bit more in a commanding position. You're still not laying forward, you're still pretty much upright, but it just gives you that little bit of commanding riding position that gives you a bit more security on the front. The only thing for me is the steering lock is terrible. It's got steering lock of a sports bike, so if you're not good at U-turns and you really had to do a U-turn, you're definitely going to be paddling this thing around to get you facing the other direction. But again, other than that, it is superb, and you can do distance on it. On that note, fuel economy, 17 litre tank. When I first got it, like when it was brand new, hadn't even a few miles on it, it was like 70 miles to a tank, and I thought, oh my god, what have I bought? I've bought something that can't even do 100 miles. This is brutal. So much so that I got in touch with Yamaha UK, and having spoken to these guys, they're like, well look, they aren't the best thing out there on fuel economy, but it should be much better than that. They reckoned that by the first service, so 600 miles, I should see an improvement, and by 1,000 miles, it should be pretty much what they would expect out the bike. And to be honest, that's pretty much exactly how it happened. By the first service, it started to get better. It was up to about 100 miles, and then by the time I hadn't even done 1,000 miles, by about 800 miles, 850, so not far away from it. From then on in, it's been getting about 125 miles to reserve, and then from that there's maybe about another 10 miles of reserve, depending on how you've been riding it. But again, even riding it very spiritedly and having good fun on it, you'll get 125 miles to reserve, which, okay, there's other bikes that do better, but it's a naked bike with bags of torque. This model's got just shy of 160 horsepower as standard. I think if you're going to buy a bike like this and then complain that it's not doing 180 or 190 miles, you've bought the wrong bike. Simple as that, folks. If you're looking for a tourer, you can tour on it. You can buy a luggage on that, tail packs, tank bags, whatever, and go and have a weekend away. I've done loads of them. I've got a few videos up north. Yeah, but if you're expecting much more, then buy a tourer. I think you've just bought the wrong bike. Other than that, they're just really good fun. I think if you're looking for something that's not overly expensive to buy, that gives you good bang for your buck, you can't go wrong. And it's a cracking looking bike. Especially, this is my favourite colour scheme. This is the colour that I wanted to get as soon as I saw it. Value for money. So a new one now is about 14.2 and comes with the R1 electronics. On this one, you've got 3 rider modes and 3 traction control settings. So at the time, again, there would be much more out there, but for, I think this was about 10.5 grand when I bought it. For 10.5 grand, absolutely brilliant. Definitely good value for money. Yeah, can't complain. The miles per mile is really good. Just back to rideability and usability. Performance on the bike is tremendous. Suspension's really good. I would always say have it set up for you and your riding gear and your weight. Brakes, everybody complains about the brakes. Now, Yamaha has a very soft feel to the brakes, so you don't press the brake and get that instant slam over the front. But other than that, the brakes are good and they will stop you. I changed the standard pads after a couple of 1,000 miles to Brembo road pads. They're the red backed pads, and that it didn't change the feel at all, but I just felt they were a little stronger. You could shore up from a higher speed a little bit easier, but that's due to the master cylinder setup, so the feel stayed the same. Other than that, can't complain. They're good brakes. Right, reliability, cost of ownership. Other than the battery, general annual servicing in tyres, it's not cost me a single penny. It's it isn't excessive wear, it doesn't burn oil. So cost of ownership, at the time, prices are changing all the time, but up until recently I would have been about £150 for a service. It's about 200 to 250 for a set of tyres, depending on the tyres you go for. I have Metzler M7RR tyres on this. Pads were 50. It's still on the original chain and sprockets. It hardly needs adjusted. So whatever way the gearing is and the way the gearbox is set and the change, it's not heavy on chains. Also, it has the quick shifter just upwards, not down and up, and that probably helps a little bit as well. But other than that, I can't fault it. I really think if you're looking for something that doesn't cost a lot of money and has good value to it and smiles per mile, you can't go wrong. As I say, it's well made, it's well put together, it's got bags of power, bags of torque. You can tour on it. There's lots of accessories out there should you wish to put them on it. For me, the two things that I put on it I think make a massive difference, and that's the comfort seat and the heated grips, and being the fact that it's satin paint, which means if your knees wear at the paint you can't polish it. I put on knee pads and a tank pad, but I think that's pretty much common sense. So as I say, it hasn't cost me a great deal of money. Annual servicing at about £150 a year, depending on how you are on tyres, or just depending how much you change them. I was unfortunate enough to have a puncture in the rear, and then about a year later had a puncture in the front. So I have had an extra pair of tyres on there that I might not necessarily needed. So it's had the tyres that it came with, which were Bridgestones. They only lasted about 2,500 miles for the pair, and this is my third set, because I put on the M7RRs and then was unlucky enough to have a puncture in the rear, so I bought a new rear. Then the following year I had a puncture in the front, so I had to change that. And then I put these on it, and then at 10,000, 11,000 miles I put on these tyres. So again, not overly heavy on the tyres, and again it's all down to how many miles a year that you're actually going to ride on it. But can't fault it, would highly recommend it. It's a good fun bike. I think it's got reasonable fuel from the tank range. As I say, only a couple of little niggles for the finish on the preload adjuster and the other adjusters on the compression. I forgot what it was called, like the compression and damping rebound adjusters on the forks and suspension. Other than that, nothing's corroded, nothing's oxidised, nothing's marked up, nothing's fallen off it. They are absolutely cracking bikes. So that's my little basic review, which has taken a lot longer than I thought. I hope you liked it. I hope it gives you a little insight. I think I've pretty much covered the bullet points. Thanks for watching. Before you go, don't move. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and stay tuned for more. Right, take care everybody. I'll see you soon, hopefully in better weather on board. Take care.